436 News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Dan Mandison for Vince Coglianese. Hope you're having a great Friday. Want to welcome on into the program Debbie Lesko, Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, representing Arizona's 8th Congressional District. And Congresswoman, I got to tell you, there is so much going on as far as the House of Representatives, and you've got the appropriations battle, you've got what's going on the southern border, you've got all of the corruption going on, of course, with Joe Biden. How are you folks in the House of Representatives? How are you trying to fit it all in? I mean, are you able to get everything done? And by the way, we can also talk about the many articles of impeachment that have been filed against the president.
Well, thank you for having me on. And yes, we are very busy. And as you said, we're doing lots of investigations. So the Oversight Committee is combined with the Ways and Means Committee and the Judiciary Committee in the House. And they're investigating Joe Biden, Hunter Biden's business partners. And the more they uncover, the more it looks like Joe Biden is implicated in this. And so I'm one of those congresswomen who believe we should proceed with an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden because it gives the House more authority to get documents and information.
Let me ask you, Congresswoman, because there is a lot of news. It almost feels like every single day there's more news on Joe Biden. We, of course, now woke up this morning, last night. We heard about the fact that the president using pseudonyms, these fake email addresses, Robert L. Peters, Robin Ware, JRB Ware, and so forth. And it does seem to me that there clearly is enough evidence, whether you call it circumstantial or not, but there's enough evidence at the very least to rise to an impeachment inquiry. From where you sit in the House of Representatives amongst Republicans, is there a pretty strong consensus at this point now that Speaker McCarthy has come out and given an indication that, yes, he is willing to have that conversation? Where is the total body of Republicans on an impeachment inquiry?
Well, I would say the vast majority are in favor of it, and we have to have a vote on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, and none of the Democrats will help us, I expect. And so that means the Republicans need to come through. Now, we have not been in Washington, D.C. in the month of August. And so Kevin McCarthy has said when we get back, we're going to get together, as we always do, as a GOP conference. And this will be one of the topics we discuss, because I have been in media, at least media has reported that there are at least a couple of the Republican U.S. House members that are not comfortable proceeding with that yet. And so I haven't talked to them directly, and that would be the whip's count if we decide to do this. The whip would make sure that we have enough votes to get this passed on the floor of the House of Representatives. But certainly I would say the vast majority of Republicans are ready to go ahead with this. That doesn't mean that it will be an impeachment, but what it does mean is that we will have more authority to do what we need to do to get the information that we need, because there's so much stuff. It just seems very, very, I don't know if suspicious is even a strong enough word, when Joe Biden, as a vice president, takes his son Hunter Biden and flies them on Air Force Two, and they go to China and they go to Ukraine, and then he's on the phone with Hunter Biden's clients, potential clients, and his business partner, Devin Archer, testified that he would do that because it was the Biden brand and it would give him influence. And then you have the Burisma Energy Company from Ukraine, where Hunter Biden was getting paid $83,000 a month to be on the board, even though he had no energy experience. Yeah. And And then they pressured him to, try to have pressure on Washington, D.C. to remove that investigator, that prosecutor that was trying to go after Burisma. And then sure enough, Biden got them to do that by threatening to take away $1 billion amount of money from Ukraine, and the guy was fired. And, of course, then millions of dollars are coming in from China, from Ukraine, from Romania. It's all very, very suspicious.
Well, yeah, and don't forget the widow of that Moscow mayor, the $3.5 million.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You said that there's still some Republicans that aren't comfortable with an impeachment inquiry. And I don't mean to be snarky, but what else do they need to hear? I guess would be my question. I mean, perhaps they feel like they're getting James Comer and Jim Jordan and the folks, in the various committees. Do they feel like they're getting enough cooperation so that they don't necessarily need to have an impeachment inquiry? I mean, because if you base it on the evidence, I mean, Lord, you just, rattled off the evidence, and there's a lot more than that, but, we only have a few minutes. So what else do these folks need to hear?
I don't know, because I don't sit in their shoes. I'm already convinced. And so, some of them I would suspect are Republicans that won their election when Biden won their district. And so
Yes.
They're in districts that Biden won. And so they're not sure if they go against Biden, if that's going to hurt them in their reelection. I imagine some people maybe just aren't at a point yet, they haven't studied it enough to determine it. But that's why we have these GOP conference meetings. So we'll be back in Washington, D.C. on September 12th. And we usually, the very following next day, that morning, we usually have a conference meeting. And I would imagine that this will be one of the top topics that we will be discussing. And so there will be a push for it. My sense from just a phone call, a conference phone call we had recently, is that Speaker McCarthy is ready to go ahead with it. And I'm not putting words in his mouth, but that's what it appears like to me.
Let me ask, getting away from the corruption, because, we could go for hours on that. But, when you look at where Joe Biden is from a policy standpoint, the other day he's bellowing about, name one thing that America has failed at. And, of course, the entire nation of conservatives scream Afghanistan, which is one of many failures of the Biden administration. I guess when you look at the overall body of work of Joe Biden over the last 2.5 years, he's done pretty good at destroying the country. And so you look at the border, you're, of course, in Arizona. You look at the border, that's a train wreck. You look at the economy, that's a train wreck. You do look at, what's going on with, Ukraine. You look at what's going on with crime in the streets all across America. I mean, I could go on and on, of course, the economy as well. Overall, I mean, things are not going well for the Biden administration. From your standpoint in the House of Representatives, I understand you feel like he's probably done a terrible job. I think we would all agree on that. But what can we do moving forward? I mean, we have another election coming up. I would assume that you anticipate keeping the House.
Well, I sure hope so. I mean, elections have consequences, and when I go around talking to people, I talk about the different things that the Biden administration is doing. To give you an example, his proposed rule by the EPA under the Biden administration that will effectively require that 2/3 of all newly manufactured cars are all electric by the year 2032. Well, most people don't know that. They hadn't heard about it. And so it's up to us to educate people and then tell them how it works. So when I go to these meetings, I say, listen, We have a Republican majority in the House. I tell them what that means. But then the chairman of all of the committees are Republican. They decide what bills are getting passed. But then we're passing in the House a bunch of bills to stop all this craziness that the Biden administration is doing. We passed a bill back in May to secure the border, but then it gets stuck in the Senate because the Senate has Democrat majority. And so I feel it's incumbent on me to educate people what is happening, because most people really do not understand the process at all.
One of the frustrating things for me is when Karine Jean-Pierre will say, well, the Republicans haven't come forward with a plan or legislation to fix the problems on the southern border. And I mean, I'm screaming to the heavens that, yes, in the House of Representatives, the Republicans have brought great ideas for, immigration reform and protecting the border and so forth. And you're absolutely right. It does get stuck in the Senate. And of course, Joe Biden doesn't want to do anything about it either. So there's a lot of spin. I'll even call it lying coming from the White House as far as what is going on the southern border. I don't feel sorry for New York. I don't feel sorry for Washington, D.C. I don't feel sorry for any of these sanctuary cities that are now being overrun with illegal aliens or migrants, whatever you want to call them, because that is what Joe Biden wants. And that's what the people of those cities have voted for. I don't know what else there is to say about that, except from your vantage point in Arizona, how's the border problem going there?
The border is a disaster. And as you said, Biden and the Democrats want a wide open border. All of their policies, all of their actions lead to that result that they want an open border, and they're using the Customs and Border Patrol officers as travel agents. They process all of these people that are coming here illegally, and they process them, and they send them off via different modes of transportation to different parts of the country. And one of the things that's really outrageous, there's a lot of outrageous things, but I just... Secretary of Health and Human Services Becerra just came in front of the committee I serve on. They're supposed to be vetting the sponsors of where they're sending these unaccompanied children. They're not vetting them. And so these girls, young boys, are being sold into sex slavery. So now they're paying off the cartel members for traveling here and getting across the border, plus they're paying off the sponsors that our own government is sending these poor kids to. This is outrageous. And it just boggles my mind that the Democrats don't care about it. They don't care about how they are selling these kids into sex slavery, and they're using them as drug mules. It's just so sad. It's sad. I'm angry. I'm sad, and I'm frustrated.
And it's interesting. You use the phrase boggles the mind. It does boggle the mind because if I remember correctly, even the New York Times reported on the child trafficking and these kids getting sold into slavery and, working horrific jobs and all of these things. Yet, for whatever reason, you have the White House press corps, very few of them will actually ask the question of Joe Biden, if they can get to him, or Karine Jean-Pierre, and really ask them to give an acceptable answer that doesn't obfuscate the truth. And so I think that, at least for me, you have the legacy media, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the networks and so forth. They're culpable in this too, because as you just mentioned a few moments ago, part of your job is educating the public. Unfortunately, it's like you have to do the media's job for the media because they're not doing it by and large.
Well, they definitely are not doing the job. They're very pro-Democrat. They're very pro-Joe Biden. And so on the border, for instance, in June of 2020, there were 33 illegal crossings on the southern border. You fast forward to June of 2023, there is 145,000 crossings. What's the difference? In June of 2020, it was Trump policies. In June of 2023, it was Joe Biden's policies. If you look at the economy here in Phoenix, Our gasoline prices are now $4.49 a gallon in Phoenix. This is crazy. Our electricity prices are going up. People cannot afford to live anymore. Mortgage rates are going up. People literally are not able to live in a house. Our homeless rates are going up. It is a total disaster. The Biden administration and its policies are a total disaster, and that is the sole reason that I stay in this job is to try to save our country.
You know, I'm looking at, and I'm chuckling just because I love it. I'm looking at some of the other legislation that you have submitted. You've reintroduced the Women's Bill of Rights. I love that. The Save Our Stoves Act. I love that. Very quickly with the Women's Bill of Rights, talk about why you felt the need to do that. I know why you did, but let's educate folks who may not know.
Well, the Biden administration, the Democrats are prioritizing transgenders over women, and it's discriminating over women. So my Women's Bill of Rights defines what a woman is. It defines this is what a woman is, this is what a man is, because it's very important in federal law and all of our legislation that we define what a woman is and what a man is, because unfortunately the Democrats are messing it all up, and they're allowing males to compete in women's sports. They're allowing teenage boys to go in teenage girls' showers and bathrooms. And this is wrong. And I have to stand up for it. And I am usually the outspoken woman who gets called all kinds of names, like I'm against transgenders and all this stuff. And I said, no, you're discriminating against women. We have fought for years to get equal rights, and now you are taking them away. And it boggles my mind, once again, that the Democrats care more about transgenders and prioritize them over women. Now, I don't want to discriminate against anybody, but they are discriminating against women, and it needs to stop.
Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, thank you very much for joining us here on WMAL. What a great conversation.